So before we get into today's 90 Day Fiancé segment, I have to bring up a discussion I had with a friend earlier today who hates the 90 Day Fiancé show, and for that matter, most reality TV shows, stating that they're scripted, it's a train wreck, and it's basically appealing to the lowest common denominator of entertainment. Now, I simply answered matter-of-factly that I do sound bites and sometimes video segments that my friends on YouTube will use on their channels, and I've been doing this for quite some time. And when I further answered that I feel like the 90 Day Fiancé show has a little bit more going on than most other reality shows, and of course he fired back, how so? Explain this. And I said, well, if you look at it, 90 Day Fiancé covers some really hot button topics: race, religion, politics, romance, divorce, immigration. There's a lot going on, and each couple represents some new twist on that narrative. Now, whether or not the directors and the producers are trying to extract some form of entertainment and it's all scripted, I think most people are aware that that's what's going on. But it doesn't take away from the engaging content as far as these hot button topics go. Which brings us to one of the most controversial couples from season 2, Danielle and Mohammed, arguably one of the most controversial couples to ever appear on 90 Day Fiancé. Primarily due to the fact that Mohammed publicly aired Danielle's personal hygiene issues along with her behavior regarding their sexual activity. Before we get into where they're at in 2019, I have to answer a few questions that were posed to me. First of all, is Mohammed here for the green card, or was he here to be Danielle's husband? I believe he was here for the green card. I don't think anybody can rationally say that he was here strictly to be married to Danielle. Now, which is unfortunate, but that's just what I feel. Now, the second question was, do I feel like Danielle was delusional to think that it was anything more than a green card situation? I think that to some extent she was delusional, but there's an interesting side question that someone asked me. Do I feel like the couple was involved in some form of fraud? And the reason why this question was brought up was that Danielle has a criminal background, which is just one part of the reason that question was asked. She has a criminal background for credit card and check fraud, which are serious crimes nowadays. That's a felony. So when we look, and this, by the way, was released by Mohammed in response to her trying to get him deported. The second part for this line of questioning had to do with Mohammed accusing Danielle of using his credit card and a fake account in his name. Now, the reason I don't feel they were cooperating together to commit fraud is that Mohammed would have so much to lose. It's almost a guaranteed deportation should he get caught for credit fraud. It's basically a ticket home. I don't believe he would do that. So I do believe that she was willingly doing some form of manipulation when it comes to credit fraud. Now, as far as where they're at today, what's going on is Mohammed's working 2 jobs. He's trying to get a job at the post office, and I believe he's just trying to move on with his life and distance himself, obviously, from Danielle. Now, he was briefly with Luisa in Miami. I personally felt as though she was seeking some sort of limelight for herself, and I believe he was looking for a way to escape Danielle. So the two of them, in my opinion, were mutually using each other. And when he came to Austin, Texas, all of his effort switched over to just distancing himself from the show and trying to just focus on some form of taking pictures and multimedia. He's doing some video editing. He works 2 jobs, airport, and the other one is, I believe, with a shipping company. I don't know what his chances are to get the post office job. The fact that he's working earns some points with me, because there's a lot of people who just come here and they don't want to do a dang thing. They don't want to pay taxes. They don't want to do anything. They just want to complain about how life's hard. I don't feel a lot of animosity towards him. I think under the circumstances, most people would find it difficult to stay with Danielle if what we were presented with in 90 Day Fiancé was in the indicator of what was really going on, which we don't know. I would say that it would be difficult for anybody to stay in that situation. And there was a lot of staged activities going on in that show, definitely. And Danielle talks about that when she talks about the incident where she's out in the streets arguing with him, that was because somebody who befriended her on social media, as posed as a friend, when she went down to Miami to confront him, that's when she saw this supposed friend of hers in the same apartment with Mohammed. And that's why they fought out in the streets. Now, I'm sure she was going there pretty much hot and bothered and angry, but I'm sure that fueled the fire. And it's interesting to me the 90 Day Fiancé didn't talk about that whatsoever. Also, when she was driving to meet her friend in Maryland and the person didn't open the door, there's some sort of a backstory there where she talks about it in this actual Instagram post right here. If you go to her Instagram post, you can see she mentions that 90 Day Fiancé edited that to look as though, he wasn't answering the door. I don't know how much of that's true. It's always going to be a he said, she said thing between 90 Day Fiancé's directors and the actual couples. I do believe 90 Day Fiancé manipulates quite a bit of what's going on, so it wouldn't seem too far-fetched to me that they were staging a lot of that. But as far as where she's at today, she has recently asked for money from her fans because she's in jeopardy of losing her place to live. She has a mobile home and she hasn't paid the rent on the lot. And she did come up with the money. She seems to be worried that the management company or the manager of the mobile home park isn't going to accept the money, and therefore she wants $5,000. Now, something doesn't make sense about this. First of all, $5,000's a lot of money for a mobile home lot. And if she said in her statements that she did come up with the money, she actually says, I came up with it, but I don't know if they're going to accept it. Well, if they don't accept it, then you have all that money, right? That's the thing. They're either going to take the money and try to evict you, which I think they technically can't do. If they accept the money, then there's a lot of laws protecting you that you just have to keep up with your rent at that point. If they don't accept the money and evict you, then you're going to get the money back. They may take a deposit or something, but she's going to end up with some money, and it shouldn't cost $5,000 to, a month or 2 months even, to have a lot in a mobile home park. Now, granted, it's a double wide mobile, so she can't just hook it to a truck and drag it to another spot. I get that. It takes money to move the mobile home if that's what she's going to do. But the question for me is that could you really trust somebody who has convictions for different fraudulent activities and has since been accused of additional fraudulent activities? I mean, why would you give somebody $5,000 who's been convicted of fraud and felony fraud for that matter? It's safe to say that Danielle and Mohammed will be under public scrutiny for years to come, and there's a lot of people who are angry with Mohammed for staying in the U.S., as well as people that are angry at Danielle for being gullible or naive or some sort of personal issue. I think overall, like any of these couples, it's best just to leave them to their own devices. The courts will make a decision on whether Mohammed can stay. Danielle will have to find her own way in life. And there's really not a lot as viewers that we have to say about that. Of course, everyone's entitled to their own opinion.